Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we have a guest. Andy, I don't believe we haven't had a guest in like 18 weeks or something. Who do we have with us?
My good friend Nin is here to help us review Candyman. She's a horror enthusiast and a film aficionado herself, so she's going to be chiming in on that.
I've heard off the show, off the record, Andy and I have been doing a lot of talking about movies, as we often do, and I've heard hot takes from Andy coming from Nin, so hopefully she brings the thunder.
Sweet.
And I know, you have a sterling reputation, not on the show,
excellent,
but at least in our personal relationships, I'm sure you'll be fine. For those of you joining us, Nin's gonna be joining us with Candyman review, and I know some of you get antsy about guests. It's going to be okay. All right. The last time we had a guest, it was great. That episode did great. All right. So everybody relax. It's going to be good. Today we are looking at Candyman. Yes, the Nia DaCosta horror has hit theaters. We took a couple weeks off. Part of that was because of me. I'll talk about it later. I won't talk about it later. But we're watching Candyman. All right. We also took a look at Annette on Amazon Prime. And yes, we watched Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I'm excited to talk about all of them. But because we took a week off, because my computer broke, we've got the show kind of jumbled this week. We're doing Candyman first, then Annette, then Shang-Chi. We're going to do news before all that, so let's jump right into it. First story, Top Gun Maverick, Mission Impossible 7 are delayed by Paramount amid COVID-19 concerns. This is definitely a bummer. It's definitely a bummer that things are getting pushed around again for Delta variant, but it's not the only thing. I was just reading a rumor last week that No Time to Die might get moved too, again, which is nuts. Andy, why is everybody so shook up?
So it's mostly because of COVID-19. Top Gun Maverick is moving to May 2022. That movie is now almost 3 years delayed. It's now competing with New Mutants for a number of delays. And Mission Impossible 7 or 8, whichever one we're on, has been moved from May to September 2022 as well. And also, Jackass Forever has been moved to January. Well, it's interesting because some films are doing really well despite the pandemic, like Marvel. But I think a lot of these more niche audience films they're just scared. Like they don't really have the power. Like it seems like people like Marvel, like people just come out for Marvel no matter what, like hurricane, COVID, no matter what. But some of these other ones, it seems like if people aren't going to the theaters in droves regularly, it seems like they might struggle.
Yeah, movies like this are in a weird spot because they don't do simultaneous release. Jackass might. I feel like I was reading something about that, but like there's no way Tom Cruise movies are coming out at home. Like he's all about you go to the theater to watch a Tom Cruise film. That's like his brand. So they got to go where people are, right? And if people aren't going to the theater right now, they have to move to when people are going to the theater, and they just got to do it. I'm bummed. I mean, I do want to see these films. Okay, Andy. All right, yeah. Tell us how you really feel. Okay, I'm not so much bummed about Top Gun because I've seen that trailer 8,000 times. But I mean, Mission Impossible 7 is usually a good time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mission Impossible, so like that is a bummer. But that's only like a 3-4 month delay. Like we are years behind now on Top Gun.
Nin, I'm curious, are you going to the movies right now? Andy and I do. I mean, obviously for the show. Okay.
I'm trying to think of the last thing I went to go see in theaters because I went to the movies. Free Guy. I went to go watch Free Guy this weekend.
Okay, well, hey, we reviewed that a couple weeks ago. What'd you think?
I liked it. It was cute.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I think it's not one I would revisit, but it was definitely a cute watch.
Yeah.
Went to get ice cream, cotton candy
nice.
ice cream because I didn't have bubblegum, so.
It's a bummer. Yeah, bubblegum ice cream is definitely relevant in Free Guy. For those of you who haven't seen it, reviewed it a couple weeks ago. It's not too bad. Go check it out. Our next story, The Matrix Resurrections teases a full trailer on Thursday with a familiar choice. This is this Thursday coming up. We're recording the episode on Tuesday, so September 9th. There is some kind of trailer dropping for The Matrix, and we know this because of a hot new website that just came out today. Andy, what's this about?
So there was kind of a teaser for the teaser, or a trailer for the trailer that came out today about The Matrix. And this kind of harkens back to an older time in cinema when they used to do kind of these viral website campaigns. There was a great one with The Dark Knight, The Matrix, especially because The Matrix was about online and digital world. There was like several Matrix websites. Anyways, this is actually a cool idea. So you go to whatisthematrix.com, and there's two pills, a red and blue pill, obviously harkening back to the original film, and you click one and you get an intro screen and then some flashes of footage. It's very quick. I mean, you're seeing things for like a fraction of a second, but it's creepy because the dialogue includes the current time, and I've watched it several times, and whatever the current time is, it tells it. And it's not like, I mean, I'm sure it's a computer program, but it's like, it sounds really authentic, and it was really creepy. Like, I saw it and I immediately checked the time and I was like, whoa.
I probably wouldn't have noticed it if my husband didn't point it out, but
do you think if I play it on the show, we'll get content flagged?
Yes, absolutely.
You do? There's only clips though, Andy, right? That's what you said. It's fine, right? Facebook
it's too long.
Flag this.
But
Facebook might flag this.
It's super cool though. It's a cool idea. I've been wondering why there's been virtually no Matrix marketing, which has been really surprising to me up until this point. But we will be getting a full like teaser or a full trailer on Thursday. So in just 48 hours, then we'll be ready for the hype train.
For anybody who doesn't know, Andy has a history with being excited for Matrix films that I've only heard about because I didn't go to college with Andy, but word on the street is you were a bit of a fanatic, right? A bit of a fan.
So this might have been the biggest heartbreak in my life in cinema history. So in 2000, take yourself back to 2004, and me and my friends were so excited about the Matrix sequel, and we saw every little thing. We read every little thing, and like when the real trailer, there was like a Super Bowl trailer that drops in January. We watched it frame by frame, like thought up all these crazy theories. So we did this for like 6 months, and then we were kind of disappointed when the movie came out. Not because it's a bad movie, but because we had hyped it for like 6 months and thought it was going to be like life changing, and so now because of that, like I tried to just like pump the brakes on the hype trains every now and then.
I'm so disappointed. This is what it's all about. The hype train's part of the fun. All right. It's Go ahead.
There's times that I just avoid trailers just because like I don't want
that's true. Yeah.
to build that up in my head and then just have it let down. So
yeah, I've definitely learned to do that with the Star Wars movies, especially with doing this podcast through them. At some point I realized for the new Star Wars films, I just watch the teaser and be like, I'm gonna go see it anyway. I just don't want to see any more footage. Like the less I know, the better going in.
See, I do like a good hype train, but it's just not time yet. You know, like these, because the footage today is showing flashes of this, and people are freeze framing it, and that's what will ruin it. Like, wait till we get a full trailer that has like full scenes and like actual dialogue and like cool stuff, instead of just like guessing what is and isn't happening. Half the stuff might not even show up in the movie. They do this. They like to do that.
Andy learned from his first heartbreak.
It's true. Yeah.
You never forget your first.
I appreciate you covered yourself, their heartbreak line with cinematic heartbreak at the end there. Cause for a minute, I thought this was going to be the most disappointment you've ever felt in your entire life was waiting for the Matrix. To be fair. Okay. Listen, I hear what you're saying. The full trailer's not out yet. You shouldn't get overexcited, but regarding the time to be excited, it's trending on Twitter, dude. Today's the time. Like today, this is it. This is part of the marketing campaign.
Nonsense. Thursday, it should be an eruption.
Nan, are you mildly excited about the? I mean, where are you at on the Matrix?
I'm excited about the Matrix. I do like the Matrix.
It's great. Love the Matrix.
I don't think I like it on the same level that Andy does, but
okay, real quick, Andy. Just to be clear, you were excited about Reloaded, not Revelations, right? Like that was.
I mean, I was
excited about
the
sequel.
I mean, I was excited for all of them at the time.
Yeah. Because the hype for Reloaded was definitely greater than Revelations for me.
Yeah.
But Revelations was the end. I don't know. Anyway, our third story, I'd sort of way too long on this. Shang-Chi smashes Labor Day record at the box office with $90 million opening weekend, second biggest domestic opening of the year, which is insanity. Not only because of the COVID and everything, but also because Disney did not spend a lot of money marketing or making this movie. And it crushed it anyway. Andy, what do you know about this story?
Yeah, so Shang-Chi was a huge box office success over the weekend, making $75 million over the 3-day weekend, $90 million over the 4-day Labor Day weekend, and actually took the record from which I think was Halloween 2 from like 2007, 2009. Made like 3 times as much money. I'm surprised that they haven't had more movies come out over this break because it completely killed it at the box office. Made almost as much money as Black Widow, and also it does not have a Disney Plus simultaneous release, so that'll be interesting to see how long, what kind of legs it has.
Yeah, to its credit, not releasing on streaming services means you have to go into theaters to see it. So if Disney's looking to make a splash at the box office, it's easy to say, okay, well, you can't get it streaming, go see it, right? It's just like Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise's whole approach to making films. Listen, I don't want to say I'm surprised by this, but I felt like I felt like I didn't see as much marketing for Shang-Chi as I did for Black Widow. I felt like I saw way more marketing for like, the final film in Scarlett Johansson's Marvel filmography, probably, than I did for like what's supposed to be our newest Avenger. And yet it turns out it actually made a ton of money and killed it anyway, right? Are people excited for more Marvel stuff? Are they hungry for superheroes? What do you think this comes from? Where does this come from?
I mean, I think Marvel just prints money now, and people. It's a bit like Star Wars. People will just come out to whatever, and in a lot of ways, this is moving forward into phase 4, which is kind of a new starting point for Marvel. And so we have a new hero, new heroes, and new characters, and what's interesting to see how it's going to tie into the rest of the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting what was said at CinemaCon last week when that was going on. Disney CEO Bob Chapek has indicated the film. I'm reading right off here, so here it is. They said that Shang-Chi will inform the studio's release strategy going forward, which I think you could read into that. But then again, every movie a studio releases informs the studio's future releases, right? That doesn't really say anything. Meanwhile, I did like Rolando Rodriguez, chairman of the National Association of Theater Owners, saying that they should urge theater owners to do all they can to help it perform. Suddenly, they're all on the Disney bandwagon, right? Like as soon as the movie's not going to streaming, they totally want to help. But when Black Widow was simultaneous, it was like, we don't want this movie. It sucks. I don't like the National Association of Theater Owners, and that's the long and short of it. I think they're super lame. Have you seen Shang-Chi yet?
No, I haven't. It is on my watch list, but I feel like I got a lot of ads for it versus Black Widow. Like I don't think I got as many ads on Black Widow as I did Shang-Chi. So
well, I don't know. They did. I felt like I saw less, and I read articles that said they spent less. So I think just between the two, I got crossed up. Plus, they advertised Black Widow for like I think
I also got ended up in a bunch of news articles where there was a lot of people that were angry about Aquafina.
Oh, really?
Because of her, she has she uses a black scent. So there's arguments whether she was using black scent or it was just her accent, or it was like Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, something like that.
We should probably tackle that on the show at some point. Andy, do you feel qualified to talk about Aquafina's black scent?
I can research. I can do some research.
Yeah, but I now that you said it out loud, I feel like I can understand why there would be articles about that. I feel like people would. Yeah. Huh. Anyway, we should move on to our first review of the show. I spent way too long on news this week. I'm sorry, guys. We were off last week. I wanted to catch up. Here it is. We are doing our first review of the episode. I'm going to be taking the summary on this, which is funny because I don't feel like I know it as well as Andy does. But I'm going to take a stab at it anyway. The movie is Candyman. So Candyman is the story of a young up-and-coming artist in what is the place he lives in? New York? Cabrini is the name of it, right?
Chicago.
Cabrini, Chicago. A disanfranchised community in the New York City suburb. I think New York, right?
Chicago.
Yeah, it's New York. I think it's New York. I don't know. Wait a second. Are both of you frozen?
Oh God!
Oh man, you're both frozen. Oh
no.
I'm on my own for this. I'm coming in real fresh on this. Candyman is the story of Anthony McCoy, young up-and-coming artist in Chicago, living with his girlfriend Brianna Cartwright, played wonderfully by Tiona Paris. One night, Anthony and Brianna are having Brianna's brother over. He tells him a spooky story about the Candyman, right? A man who was a janitor at a school and used to give candy out to kids. And one day a razor blade was found in one of the pieces of candy. Chicago police found out, went and found the Candyman and beat him down in a most unjust fashion because as it turned out, it wasn't his fault. The razor blades were coming from somebody else and he was framed. And the Candyman very quickly becomes a kind of a Bloody Mary figure in the community of Cabrini Green at that point. He is like an entity, right? An evil, a horror slasher, I think in the most traditional sense, but more Bloody Mary rules. You say his name in the mirror 5 times and he appears, a Candyman. Bloody Mary's 3 times. I'd attribute him more to like a Freddy Krueger than like a Jason Voorhees, right? He's a bit mystical. And the film really dives into exploring what that means. But for Anthony, who hears the story, he gets inspired. He's been looking for something new to dig into with his art. So he travels to Cabrini Green the next morning with a camera to try to take some photos, maybe look at some settings and find some inspiration. He meets some people, he talks to some folks, and he discovers more about this Candyman story. And along the way, The line begins to blur between reality and fiction and what is and is not real. And suddenly, our young artist discovers he is far more tangled up in this Candyman tale than maybe he ever intended to be. The film stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Tiana Paris in our leads. It's directed by Nia DaCosta. It is a wonderful horror film. Andy, what do you think of Candyman?
So I'm a huge fan of this property. I think there's a lot of great things, and I think there's some things that don't quite work. I think it might grow on me on kind of multiple viewings, because I think there's a little bit of viewing anxiety, or just kind of that hype about it. There's definitely, I think its biggest issue is that there's too many ideas fighting for kind of prominence. It's a very kind of different interpretation of what Candyman is. And, it's Candyman as like an avenging angel, as like a representation of like Black trauma, as just the slasher that comes because you invoked him. And these ideas are all present in the film, kind of fighting. So I think narratively it's a little all over the place, but it does have a lot of mood. It has a really great score, and it does have some really kind of grisly scenes. It's not super scary, like there aren't a bunch of jump scares, but it's not really that kind of movie.
Nin, initial impressions of Candyman. What'd you think?
So I actually ended up watching it twice, but
oh wow,
it was mostly because there was some woman texting in the corner, and she actually took a phone call during the movie. So it's just like, you're ruining my horror movie experience.
The worst thing,
but. Yeah. There was, I liked it. I will say that I'm in several horror movie groups, and there was a lot of people that actually were upset about how it's so woke. But it's like, I mean, the first one also covers similar issues. Yeah, themes where it's just like the original Candyman was a slave that fell in love with a prominent guy's daughter, and they end up murdering him because of that. But as far as what I liked the new one. I will say, I guess there was a lot going on at times, so it felt like it was kind of, I guess, in the first act for a lot of the movie, and then you kind of go into
kind of the end.
Yeah, the end.
Like, yeah,
it felt kind of abrupt, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. So I think, having not seen the original, I actually really like this movie a lot. I think what I like the most about it isn't actually in the writing, it's the cinematography. And we should talk about that at the end, because it's worth talking about. This movie has some stunning directorial work by Nia DaCosta, but the writing is trying to handle a lot. It feels like there's like 3 or 4 films in what this movie is trying to do, and it's a little long. It's like, what, 2 hours 20, but
it's 90 minutes. Yeah. It's really short.
Is it really?
Yeah,
I thought
it was much longer.
It needs
but yeah,
to
no,
be
it's
2
90.
hours 20. Yeah, like it's doing so much in there, not only trying to cover like the Candyman mythos and the multiple iterations of that over generations, which is kind of talked about in the film, but also trying to juggle like a host of characters in a gentrified city. It's trying to handle art critique. It's trying to handle racism. Like, there is a ton of stuff this movie is attempting to do, and I think its biggest downside is that it's trying to hold too much, right? It's a 5-pound pail and 10 gallons of water, or whatever that phrase is. So let's jump into it, right? First things first, the plot. You had both seen the original, so you can kind of help me piece this together. But the first time our artist hears about the Candyman is at this kind of get together, right, with his girlfriend's brother, and he's telling her this kind of goofy story about I don't remember her last name, Helen, this researcher who was interested in this Candyman story, who ended up going crazy, right? And it's told with this wonderful shadow puppet look kind of thing that you can see in the trailers throughout the film. Really fantastic, very artistic. I didn't know like that kind of story he's telling is the plot of the first film. Yeah.
I kind of like that they did it that way, where, because I would recommend watching the first one and then going back, because they do reference a lot of the first one in the new one, but it's definitely in the first one, the main character is a white woman, which in the second one, they only reference her.
Yeah.
And the things that she came across, like she was in our neighborhood and she was taking photos of people and like doing all this research, and then she just went crazy and like.
Yeah, like it just comes out of nowhere. Yeah, it's really strange. And I liked the way the film kind of grows that myth, and then as Anthony kind of goes to investigate the Candyman conspiracy or whatever it is, like he finds like there's what she was investigating a previous story. So he goes down that rabbit hole. What was she investigating? And then what was that related to? And you start to find these kind of like generational instances of people who are discovering this idea of a candy man in some capacity and being felt by it, right? Like people who go nuts or go crazy or get too tangled up in it. It's a little like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 that way, or 2, I guess. The kid who discovers Freddy and starts to learn more about him, and then before he knows it is like, wait, this is too real, this is too much, right? I didn't know I was this far down the rabbit hole. It's a through the looking glass kind of situation. But this movie handles it really well because it's very patient and it really takes its time, which is weird because it does not feel like a 90-minute film.
Yeah, I think one of the issues for me is we constantly feel like we're in the first act. Like the first 2 acts all feel like act 1. Like we feel like we're constantly setting up, and then it just kind of jumps to the third one. I will say the original is much more in the style of the traditional slasher. You know, it came out in 92, which means it was filmed in 91. So it's much more in the vein of things like Halloween, not Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's a little bit more simple in that you say his name and he kind of appears and murders you. I will say this mythos is a little inconsistent in all the movies. It's a little inconsistent of exactly what and why the Candyman comes forward, and I think that's also a problem in this movie because it has trouble establishing its rules and then staying by them.
Nan, any thoughts on that? Because having not seen any of them, I felt like this was a little jumbled. But yeah, it turned out, finding out later, Andy said, yeah, no, there's some of this explained in previous films, other stuff it's inconsistent.
Yeah, so there's actually 3 other Candyman movies, which 2 and 3 go off of the original as sequels, but with the new one, they threw those out because those are pretty bad. So they just started with the original one and then continued the story from there, which is something that's similar to what Halloween did.
Yeah, the new absolutely. One. Yeah.
Sorry,
it's okay. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where.
So, well, one thing that I wanted to mention is, I said there's a lot of ideas competing for space here. One of them is Anthony McCoy himself, Yahya Martina Abdullah II. He's got a long name.
He says a long name.
He's slowly kind of turning it into the Candyman himself, which is a really interesting idea because his he gets stung by this bee and then like his hand starts to kind of rot and like it only gets worse. His whole arm starts getting infected and he's like clearly kind of turning into to Candyman. And that's a great idea, but like I said, it's competing with like 4 other great ideas.
Yeah, it's trying to do a lot in the film. Like I said, it on the one hand, you have a protagonist who's kind of becoming this very thing that he fears, which is interesting in itself. Like Nightmare on Elm Street 2 did that. That was the whole premise, right? You've also got a heaping dose of previous lore that you're trying to work in and build into, which is something like, usually origin films are good at, right? Nightmare 1 or Halloween does that pretty good, right? Like typically horror slashers follow these kind of basic formulas, and this one just tries to do a bunch, and I think that kind of hurts it because it just feels like it's doing too much. I mean, you said it perfectly. And then like the first and second acts feel pretty tight. It feels like this puzzle box is going somewhere. There's a lot of mysteries, and then come act 3, it's like it all has to come to a screeching head somewhere, and it doesn't really feel satisfying in most of the areas where you were interested. There were a handful of mysteries that I kind of wanted solved. And by the end of the movie, I was like, I guess I got my answers, but I was so much more interested. Like the journey to get there was so much more interesting than the destination for me, because it just felt like this kind of, who said it? We were talking to somebody about this movie. They said, yeah, it feels like there was a half hour that was cut out somewhere. Like it felt like this movie jumped like to conclusions in a weird way. Cause before that, the setup was so interesting.
I'd be interested to see like an extended release or whatever, I guess the director's cut or something like that to see what ended up on the cutting floor. Cause it definitely feels like some stuff just kind of got cut out for time's sake. And it sacrificed the film for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Characters' motivations are like drastically at least one character in particular I can think of, and I bet you guys know who I'm talking about. Like throughout most of the film, seems to have kind of their own course and kind of doing their own thing. They're a little mysterious, but then at the end, like they come crashing in with like this all new motivation, and suddenly they're like a totally different person. And I was like, man, I really did not see that coming. I don't think anybody did, because there wasn't a lot of setup for it. It just
I
happens.
think if it is, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy we're talking about, but I feel like they kind of tried to explain that, but it was just like they feature some of his, I guess, development at one part, and then there's like another brief one, and then it's just kind of like bang, like
right. And then suddenly out of nowhere, here we are, which, you know, that's okay. Like, you know, there's a few mysteries in this film, and like any good mystery, right, there has to be a solution at the end. Sometimes it's not always going to be satisfying, and that's okay. What is satisfying, I think, is watching these characters kind of develop over time. Yahya Abdul is so much fun to watch in this movie. Like, he's great. He's this kind of tortured artist who's just getting more and more inside his own head. At the beginning of the film, he's very endearing. He's very hopeful. Like, hey, I'm going to come up with something new. And then by about the halfway point, he's off the deep end, and it's like, man, he doesn't know how to get back. He's asking for help for people in his life. Like, it's a struggle. They really run with that idea of art and having a studio and producing things that are meaningful. There's an art critic character who's got a whole thing that she talks about. Like, I think our creators here, Anita Costa, is also executive produced by Jordan Peele, and the writer of the original work, I believe, I forget his name, Win Rosenfeld, I think. No, he did not write the original book, or yeah, Clive Barker, I guess, with the original story, right? Yeah,
with the original story.
Yeah, apologies. I keep referencing Nightmare, but that's a little bit of a, even though he didn't also.
No, I liked, so like you referenced Nightmare in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. It's kind of like they see the people getting killed, but they don't see what's killing them. And that's kind of similar to this, where you see the killer in the reflections, but it's not like they don't see him there other than a reflection.
Yeah. I think a lot of the kill stuff is really effective. Andy, I feel like I've been talking forever. You got to have something to jump into there.
Yeah.
Right?
So one big difference, I think, in like I said, the original is like is a real traditional slasher, but we also get kind of full-fledged Candyman right from the beginning in that film, kind of just like you would get like Jason or Freddy or Mike Myers. They're like at 100% from the beginning. In this one, we kind of build up to Candyman. It's definitely, I think, more of an introduction of a character. Like, this almost feels like an origin story, and it does feel like we will get more films. But the whole thing was like establishing and almost creating the character, as opposed to someone who's already established. Because in the first one, Candyman is played by Tony Todd, he's like 6'5". He's got this big booming voice, and he's got this great dialogue, and he's just like, you know, he does a lot of monologuing and just like,
be my victim.
Yeah, he's like, be with me, be my victim. I am the writing on the wall, and he's like swinging his hook around. It's it's like Shakespeare, man.
It's very iconic, definitely.
Yeah, and we don't really get any of that in this movie, but we kind of build to it. And like I said, I think this is setting up a franchise, and I think if this gets a second or third movie, I think those will probably be a little bit more focused.
Yeah, I think so. I do want to talk about like the cinematography and the presentation. This movie has some really stunning set design, as one of the things I noticed right off the bat. A lot of the sets here are practical. I think they actually went and shot in places, but a lot of the buildings are really odd, really unique architecture, a lot of brutalism, a lot of concrete. And I know that kind of ties in with like the fine art angle of our lead artist character, but it also harkens back to directors like Stanley Kubrick, who traditionally used a ton of brutalist architecture in their work if possible. It reminded me of movies like A Clockwork Orange or even The Shining at certain points, especially with like 1 point perspective. Additionally, a lot of really creative camera work. The film opens with inverted production slates, which already sets a really cool, unique, creepy tone, along with some really fantastic Philip Glass music that I think came from the original film, and quickly segments into like this upside down look of the city, like this camera kind of slowly trawling across the streets as we look at like cloud covered buildings that are upside down and inverted, so they look right side up, just really unique stuff. And the film is full of this. I mean, even in its origin storytelling with these like shadow puppet kind of effects, like really fantastic visuals, really great. Like I was glued to the screen for the film, even in the stuff that was confusing. Like it's just a beautiful film to watch. Really fantastic work for what otherwise I thought was going to be a slasher horror. The music's also tremendous. What do you guys think?
Well, I was just going to touch on the music. I'm a huge fan of the soundtrack of the original, and the original was by Philip Glass, who's of course done a lot of film work. And he has this style of minimalist writing music, and it's not him. He didn't score the new one, but it's inspired a little bit by that. You get some really intense minimalistic. And by the way, minimalism in music usually means repetitive. Like you have repetitive sounding music, repetitive ideas. So we get a few really intense tracks like that, but it's its own thing. It's not just like, a copy paste of Philip Glass, but I really like the score.
Yeah, it's really tremendous. Nin, any thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the score. And then as far as the cinematography, there's that one shot with that one kill. It's kind of like,
oh yeah,
they come out, and that one was really nice.
Yes, yeah, really good stuff. There's another great sequence. I mean, there's a handful of really cool sequences in this, especially involving mirrors. That's a big part of it. Obviously, the say my name kind of thing 5 times. But there's a really great sequence in an elevator that's all mirrors, like floor to ceiling, walls are all mirrors, and that stuff's it's not easy to shoot. Typically, you can see the camera in reflection, so it's hard to shoot a room full of mirrors and make it look cool. And like they totally do. Like it's simple, but like it's really effective to like bring you into the world of the film. It really works. I also like the costuming. It's really tremendous, and the color. The Candyman in this film wears this kind of like yellow raincoat. It's like this off yellow color. And at the beginning of the film, you don't see a lot of that. But then as he starts to kind of become more of an entity within the movie, our artist characters, Anthony's kind of looking at him more and painting, you start to see these hints of this yellow. And like before you know it, like they have, there's a bathroom scene and the wall in the back is painted yellow, or a character is wearing a yellow polo. Like, it's really consistent. Meanwhile, Anthony, our lead, has a red hat that he wears all the time. And as the film goes on and Anthony becomes less of himself and more into this Candyman mythos, you see less of the red. It's crazy. Like, it's really simple stuff, but it's really effective visual storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. I think the visuals of this are really fantastic. There's some really kind of iconic scenes, and it's pretty gruesome. Like some of the there's a lot of body horror. It's not like jump scare scary, it's just body horror scary.
Yeah, for sure. It's a hard R, definitely. And I guess to wrap this up, because we've been talking about this for a long time, as a new slasher film, I do feel like the mythos around our slasher character is a little confusing in this one for the average person. But overall, I feel like I understand most of the motivations behind Candyman. I genuinely don't get exactly how his powers work. That's the one thing I don't actually know. If you say his name 5 times, does he kill you or just other people in the room? Does it always work or just sometimes? Like, the movie's a little inconsistent. You put out a second film, you tie all those knots up, like, problem solved. Like, we're great, right? We're on our way. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I agree that I think that's been, and that's a problem in the first film, is the original film also because there's the character, but then a lot of times just horror tropes are thrown in just because, and then they kind of make everything not make sense. I think it does need to kind of establish what its rules are and are not, and just clarify them a little bit more moving forward. Which, like, I'm pretty like, this was also had a good box office opening, so we might get another film.
Yeah, that would be super cool. Nin?
Yeah,
I mean, what do you think?
Same as Andy. It's like in the first one where it's kind of inconsistent, where it's just like, does everybody in the room die? Is it just you? Like, Candyman shows up and you're standing there, but somebody else shows up, so they're also murdered. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, it was set up for a sequel, it seems, but I do hope that they kind of further explain like what exactly it is, because
yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just, that's the one thing for a good slasher to work. It's got to have pretty clear rules. like typically, right? Like, you know, Freddy Krueger gets you when you're sleeping, doesn't work if you don't believe in him. Jason Voorhees seems to always come back forever. There's really nothing you can do about it. Don't have sex in the cabin in the woods. Michael Myers, I don't know. He's coming for Laurie Strode. Candyman, a little bit more unique, but that's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it new, right? Like, that's what makes it different. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting too, because all of the other slashers, like, they're very iconic. They all like have essentially the same face or mask for most of the movies, or similar, because Jason has multiple masks.
True.
But like, you get the gist that it's the same person, and they've set it up to where there's been different Candyman or Candyman. So it's like
kind of across time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I also have a small crackpot cinema theory that most slasher films are classist, and this one technically checks that box, but also leans into racism as horror, which is exciting because it's different. So yeah. Anyway, I'll talk about that some other time. Andy, would you recommend Candyman?
Yeah, absolutely. Both for fans of the original and for people new to the property. It's not perfect. It's got some issues narratively, but I think it has good, like we said, it's got great cinematography, good score, good performances, and it's hopefully kind of the beginning of a franchise or trilogy or something. So I think there's more to come, but I think it's a good jumping in point.
Yeah. Nin, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely recommend Candyman, and I do recommend watching the original one first. So if there's anything you don't understand, maybe you can get a better idea of it. But I do recommend this new one. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I watched it twice, but because some woman answered her phone while we were in the theaters.
Brutal. But oh my gosh. Yeah.
And during my second watch, somebody was texting, and that one too. So I was just like,
wow.
I don't know what you don't understand about horror movies.
Well, I'm sorry. People who listen to this podcast know my opinions on other people in movie theaters. It's a whole thing. Andy too. We're all on the same page. We're with you 100%. I'm in the same boat. Having not seen the original Candyman film, I can say definitively, like, this movie's cool. You should go see it. I really enjoyed it, especially if you have any passing interest, not only in like horror and slashers and stuff that's new and exciting in this industry, but also just like good cinematography. Like, really, I can't wait to watch this movie again just because I want to enjoy like the shots, like really creative stuff. Really tremendous. That's Candyman in a nutshell. We should move on to our next film. Before then, Nin, I know you said you got to go. Yeah. I hope we didn't keep you
heading out. Yeah,
no worries. Okay.
No, I'm good.
Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell your friends. Any shout outs while you're on the podcast? I mean, the floor is yours. Now the time.
No, I mean, I guess I'm going to Texas Theater does a thing on the first Tuesday of every month called Tuesday Night Trash.
Is that any good? I've never been.
They're fun. It's generally B horror movies, so it's my thing. But they're fun, and it's a free movie night, so.
Nice. I do love the Texas Theater. Andy, we should go to a Tuesday Night Trash sometime.
We should. Yeah. That's a good outing.
They're doing that tonight. I think I forgot where tonight. It's like Blood Sport or something. I don't remember right now, but
the Jean-Claude Van Damme film.
Not that one. There's
I've seen the ads for it. They'll usually get like a VHS or something terrible and just run it. It's great. Yeah, like Trash. Love it. Yeah,
it's very fun.
I need to go check it out. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. We'll see you.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Andy. Now our listeners are about to be subject to. We should keep this brief, right? Because I know this episode's running long, and it's a unique movie. And I, who's taking the summer on this? Me or you? I didn't even.
I can take it.
Do you mind? I'm sorry. Oh, okay, yeah.
I will do.
Go ahead, please.
My best.
You can do it.
Annette. So Annette is a new film musical from French director Leos Carax, starring Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard. With featuring music by Sparks. Adam Driver is this kind of foul-mouthed comedian, kind of a shock jock kind of person, and his beautiful wife Anne, played by Marion Cotillard, is an opera singer, this incredible soprano. So they're kind of it's a Beauty in the Beast situation, and they come together and they have this romance, and they're kind of the talk of the town because there's such kind of diverse people. They eventually have a child who's this singing wonder as well, and all the time there's kind of this darkness flowing underneath the film. This is very bizarre. Like I didn't realize I didn't see a trailer about this at all. I just kind of heard it talked about.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a surrealist musical. There's some really kind of bizarre numbers, but the music is actually really catchy. I've been listening to the soundtrack kind of since we watched it a week or two ago. But basically, it's a Hollywood story of this kind of doomed to fail, star-crossed Hollywood couple who has this kind of amazing child star, but then there's issues there as well. And in the meantime, we have like this really great music that accompanies all that's happening on film. It's really kind of out there, but it's kind of growing on me over time. So Zach, what do you think?
So I'm in the same boat. I didn't know a lot about this movie. I knew it had Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard in it. I knew it was directed by Leo Carra, who is the French director who directed Holy Motors and has not directed anything in English. This is his first film. I knew he was surreal. And yeah, I know when it's Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard, it's going to be unique because those are two actors and actresses who don't, they're not in Marvel movies. They're not just taken. I say that, and Marion Cotillard is definitely in a DC film, but Batman is different. That's Christopher Nolan Batman. That's not even like real DC, right? That was that was like cinema DC, all right? And the two of these actors are going to be good stuff, right? That's what they're about. So I knew this was going to be something unique. I hadn't seen a lot of trailers. I jumped in with both feet, and the first 45 minutes, Andy, I shot you a message. The first half hour, I was like, this has an okay start, and then it gets real bumpy, and I'm not really into it. And then right at the 45-minute mark, Annette takes a step away and it reminds you, hey, this is something unique. You might enjoy this. And for the rest of the film, I was like glued to the screen, man. I'm in the same boat. I am not really, I think, any kind of dedicated fan of this movie, but I have continued to think about it since I saw it. And I'm really glad we have the opportunity to talk about it on the show because, like you said, I don't know who the hell to recommend this movie to. Because it's really weird, but it's super cool. I'm glad we're talking about it. Where do we get started here?
Well, I was going to mention one thing. So it's really long. It's 2 hours, 20 minutes. It is a long watch. And
that's the 2 hours, 20 film I was thinking of, not Candyman, this movie. Yes.
Yeah. And there are extended sequences of like his stand-up routine, and that's part of what makes the beginning very long is you get his whole stand-up routine or 10 minutes of it at the beginning, and it's kind of hard to get to. At the same time, it starts with this incredible number called Shall We Start or Can We Start?
So Shall We Start or something like that, which is great and super catchy. Yeah, great opening number to a film.
It's a huge long take, all going all from the inside of this music recording studio out onto the street, paparazzi, and it features wow.
Yeah, this one take long opening sequence features our director starting our musicians who are the composers of the film, who very quickly leave the studio while singing to meet our lead actors and actresses, who then parade down the street and ultimately get in a car to start the film. So it already starts in a meta capacity. It's hey, we're creating something different here. Come with us. And from there, like you said, we get a whole lot of Adam Driver's kind of stand-up routine, which is a Bo Burnham, Kanye West style, kind of monologue delivery on stage. He wears a goofy outfit. He has backup singers, and it's very much, it's weird. And the movie kind of settles from there, right? Then he goes and meets his girlfriend, who's this opera singer. It's through the stand-up he kind of indulges his character's motivations. We find out about him. And from there, the movie seems to be pretty much on track, right? The two of them are in love with each other. The paparazzi don't understand it. How could this crude stand-up comedian and this wonderful soprano be together? And that's when the movie got boring. From there, I was like, okay, this is kind of dull. But then they have the baby Annette. Right? Baby Annette.
Baby Annette.
Baby Annette.
Baby Annette.
Yes. I'm going to need you to send me the track that's in, because I went looking on the soundtrack and was like, I don't remember where that is exactly.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. So the soundtrack, it's not a lot of traditional kind of musical numbers. You have these rock songs, but then you also have things that are very operatic, very, Stephen Sondheim-esque kind of writing. And it's the styles are all over the place, which is a good thing, makes it really interesting. But it's definitely just not a traditional musical music wise as well.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because the only thing I know about Sparks, and I should know more because I've heard they're great, but the thing I know about them is they're the subject of Edgar Wright's documentary Sparks, right?
Yeah.
And I know because of that, oh hey, they're a big deal in the music world, but otherwise I have not heard of them. So to see them surprisingly open the film and it says music by these guys, I'm like, oh okay, that's kind of a neat, it's kind of a neat introduction to me going to see that documentary at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're a big deal, but I hadn't really been familiar with their music until this film, which is very fitting. It's very unique, very different, but very exciting. I want to talk about kind of Adam Driver's role in this film. He is, I think, our protagonist, right? He's our main character. And he has quite the journey. It is a bit of a surreal dip into celebrity, right? And what it means to be a celebrity. This is modern day, by the way. I want to say this is not like, some weird setting or anything. This is taking place in, I think, 2021. That's when this is all supposed to be happening. But it's a look into celebrity and paparazzi. It's a look into fatherhood and being a husband. It's a look into being, being somebody with talent, somebody that people look up to, and ultimately like what that means. But also, it's a surreal musical. So when Annette comes into the picture, I mean, should we even talk about?
Yes, yeah, I read a review. I read a review.
I don't even, because I didn't know going in, and it was better for it. So I almost hate to give it away, but we should. It's a review show. By God, you're right. Okay, Andy, go ahead.
So, baby Annette, which has this wonderful, wonderful voice, is played by a puppet, a marionette. Yes. And like it's like the only one in the whole movie. It's kind of a bizarre choice. And I can't say it completely works, but it like no one like, references it. No one treats baby Annette any different than a human child. But it's a bizarre choice to have this like puppet baby for the film to represent the child. I can think probably production wise, it was probably a really like it's easier to do that than to work with a real child or or CGI child.
Yeah.
But it was just, it's kind of bizarre. I mean, there's a lot of surreal things in this film, and that's even like that just adds to it. So you have this puppet baby that's, with this wonderful voice, is, launching a career because of it. It's bizarre, but it's the stand-in for the child.
Yeah, it's really unique. I did not see that coming, and nobody in the film, I mean, everybody plays it straight. And because we're working with actors like Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard, and also worth mentioning Simon Helberg, who plays
the accompanist.
Yeah, okay, yes, in this film. I meant previously. You would know him from The Big Bang Theory. He's one of the goofy sidekick dudes. Howard Wolowitz, I think, is his name. I didn't watch a lot of Big Bang Theory. Dude, he's super good in this movie. He's really good in this movie. And like, I've only ever known him from CBS sitcoms, right? Like, I was very impressed. Yeah, he plays a wonderful accompanist, has a number of musical numbers that he handles brilliantly. For everybody that's in it, you'd think, okay, they're working with like a puppet, that would be goofy. But like, no, it's played artfully and it's played straight. And everybody in the film respects it. Nobody talks about her being a puppet. They talk about her as if she's a real girl. Because she is in the world of the film. We just see her as a puppet. Like only the audience sees her as this kind of marionette character. And you get some really cool, really interesting set pieces built around this, because she is not actually like a functioning human on screen. They're able to do some unique things with her presentations. When she sings, she's kind of lifted up into the clouds. The moon comes out. There's these really cool, very theatrical set pieces that they use to tell these stories. At one point, Adam Driver's character is washed up on a beach, and like it's very clearly a stage. Like it is not a real beach at all, but it's not supposed to be. Like it's supposed to have this kind of meta presentation of theater and cinema like crossing over one another, and it kind of works like in a way that I didn't expect. I didn't think I would be kind of pulled into it in the way I was, but it's genuinely hypnotizing at times, at least to me, somebody who watches a lot of movies. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, like I said, it was a little slow for me, and because it was so weird, and I think it's just because I was blindsided by it. Like, it's like if you saw a Charlie Kaufman film, something like Eternal Sunshine or Being John Malkovich or Synecdoche, New York, or Adaptation, or any of those like really bizarre surrealist films, and no one like prepped you or primed you for it, you'd be like, what is this? And that's how this is too. I think I should have watched a trailer, and usually it's great if you don't watch a trailer, but I felt like you need to know what you're getting into to kind of appreciate it a little bit more. But at the end of the day, we do have this classic Hollywood story, and I was reminded of things like Mulholland Drive, and another the Hollywood mystery, because that's what we have. They have this kind of Hollywood Beauty and the Beast power couple that everyone is just like, wow, this is so bizarre. Like, she's way too successful and attractive for him, and he's this like kind of like gross, unkempt, crass comedian, and yet they work, and we all adore them. All this, and the references, I feel like there's a reference to some real life Hollywood mysteries, which I don't want to get into because it'll be kind of spoilery. But it's a Hollywood story. It's an LA story at the end of the day, told in this very bizarre musical form.
I guess I don't want to talk too much more about it. And I know we need to move on to Shang-Chi. So I'm curious, Andy, I want to have a quick conversation. Who is this movie made for? Who is supposed to see this? Because I can't nail down. I mean, really, cinephiles is easy, right?
Theater majors, musical theater piece.
Like, and from there, I don't really know who else. I think it's taking. I mean, obviously, I think it's taking aim at the Hollywood machine, right? Like,
sure.
But I don't know, like, to what end people are supposed to see that. And maybe that's what good art is, right? Like, maybe good art isn't necessarily aimed at any one person. Maybe it's just something a creator makes because they believe in it. But a lot of creators had to come together to create this feature. Amazon Prime bought it for a reason, right? Like, they believe in this. I want to recommend this movie. I don't know who it's made for.
Definitely people who like love experimenting, who like experimental films, or who are looking to see things out of the ordinary or something different, the cinephile, or just someone who's like, just really open-minded and willing to watch something bizarre.
Yeah, I think you nailed it so perfectly with Charlie Kaufman, because the first time I ever saw Being John Malkovich, I didn't watch a trailer. I heard it was cool. I saw it on like an IMDb list, and I was in high school and was very ignorant at the time. When I say this, I torrented it on the internet, and I was like the first 15 minutes, I was like, this movie's not what I expected, and then it just gets weirder, and but that's such a great experience. So it's unique, I guess, in a word, Annette. And I guess, Andy, any more thoughts before recommendations?
No, I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Annette?
So this is a good movie that I don't think I would recommend to anyone.
Really?
I can't.
Oh, man. Okay.
I can't. I just don't, or I'm going to recommend it with a ton of caveats. Like, I might share this with like, the people at the School of the Arts that I work with, that kind of crowd. I would definitely prep someone, say, it's a musical. It's kind of a bizarre one.
Really weird.
It's long. It's surreal. If that sounds like something you'd be into, then go right ahead. But most people, the average cinema goer, is probably not someone I would recommend this to. I don't think they would enjoy it.
I feel like if I went down the list of people in my life who listen to this show that I know and watch films based on recommendations, 90% of them would not like this movie. They'd probably get through it. I feel like they'd watch it, but they'd be like, come on, like, that is not my speed. And I don't know what to tell you. I like this movie. I actually do want to recommend it, but it's for people who are willing to take a chance, for sure. You got to be willing to take a plunge on something different. Like, you gotta buy the ticket and take the ride on Annette. And it's a bit of a slog at 2 hours 20. It's a bit too long. I'll be honest, like, for sure. But it is very rewarding. If you can stick it out, I think the opening number is going to drive you through the first half hour. You just got to wait to right around that 45-minute hour mark, and the movie starts to turn into something different. So that's Annette, a really unique film. I'm really glad we had the opportunity to talk about it here. I wish we could talk about it more, but the fact is, Andy, We gotta get to the goods. The reason everybody tuned in this week,
That's right.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So you're gonna be taking the summary on this one. Thank you. I appreciate it. Whenever you're ready, man, take it away.
All right. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So this is the latest entry from Marvel. This is kind of the official beginning of Phase 4. We're introduced to a new hero played by Simu Liu, who's goes by Sean at the beginning of the movie. Him with his good friend Katie, played by Awkwafina, are valet drivers. They have this lowly job in, I guess it's New York, and they're just kind of wasting their lives. They're having fun. They're good friends. They have this dinner very early on where they have some other friends who are kind of judgmental about their jobs, saying, "Hey, you guys are, you're not living up to your potential. You could be doing so much more." And they're like, "Whatever, we like what we're doing." And so they are just going about their lives. They're on this bus, and all of a sudden, Sean gets attacked by like these ninja assassins, and he goes from being, Mr. Nobody to being this like kung fu master who fights all of them, stops the bus from crashing, and just has these incredible fight scenes on this bus. And it's kind of the cat's out of the bag that Sean is a lot more than he says he is. And turns out his name is Shang-Chi, and he comes from this kind of this very storied past, controversial father figure and mother who have this epic love story, and the mother suffers a tragedy. Sean becomes a warrior to get revenge, and there's a lot going on in this. I'm trying not to give too much away.
It's true.
But basically, Shang-Chi has to reconcile his past. He's been running from it. He has to face his father, there are people coming after him and his sister. So he ends up going back to Macau, back to China to, make sure everyone's safe, see what's going on, confront his father, and see exactly what he's kind of supposed to do in this, confronting his past instead of running for him. That's essentially what this story is. Meanwhile, we get tons of action because it's a Marvel film, it's a comic book film, and it's a kung fu film as well. We have a ton of stars from Hong Kong cinema. We have Tony Leung. I was about to say Awkwafina, not Awkwafina. Newcomer Meng Er Zhang, who plays his sister, Xiaoling. She apparently this is her first movie ever, and she's amazing. She does a lot of the fights as well as Fala Chen and Michelle Yeoh, who has been in a star of Hong Kong cinema for 30 years. So really an incredible cast of Asian A-listers, and that's I think that's enough story. That's what we have going on. Zach, what do you think?
So I actually really like this movie. I'm not gonna say I liked it more than I thought I would. I didn't know going in. I mean, this is supposed to be Marvel's next Avenger, right? Like a newest Avenger they've been touting in the marketing. And I don't know the story. I felt before this, I could definitively say when I think of the Avengers, even the comic book version, right? Like aside from the MCU, when I think of the Avengers, I don't think of Shang-Chi. Like I just don't. I don't think of him as any kind of like A-list hero. He's like a comfortable B tier, right? Like that's why I put him like a Black Widow, Hawkeye kind of spot. But after watching this film, dude, way more interested in Shang-Chi. I want to see a sequel. I want to see more. Like this is good stuff, and it's an origin story like you've seen 1,000 times, but it's told in a unique setting, some unique characters, and honestly, some unique formatting. This movie does a lot of clever use of jump cuts to kind of move efficiently through a plot, right? Our characters will be at work one day, and then next scene, they're at dinner. Like there's no going home, there's no getting ready. They just jump from one to the other. It actually happens a few times in the film, and it's effective. It's unique. And that's just in basic storytelling. Shang-Chi goes to a number of settings and locations and has some really, really good actors and actresses in it that hold up a plot that, while at times might be just a little thin right in the middle, ultimately has a really satisfying beginning and a very satisfying ending. I like this movie a lot. So let's jump into it. What's the best place to start talking about? I guess your plot? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I forgot to mention it's called and the Legend of the Ten Rings. There are these kind of like 10 rings of power, which is his father owns or has, and he's been alive for like 1,000 years or whatever, and they kind of make him invincible or most powerful, and he's kind of rules with an iron fist. He's kind of has this criminal organization that he's wondering. So the Ten Rings are a big part of everything that's going on as well.
Yeah. Ten Rings are definitely important, but you'd forgive us for not knowing that, because while the film implies that like the Legend of the Ten Rings will be a really big part of the film, the Ten Rings are a huge part of the film, but the legend behind them actually isn't that delved into. It's mostly about Shang-Chi, right? He's literally the first thing in the title, makes sense, but it leaves just a little mysticism behind him, and I like that because it sets us up for the future, right? We have an idea of how strong these rings can be, but where they come from, how they work, that is another mystery entirely.
Yeah, this is kind of this is more of a fantasy film. This is closer to something like Doctor Strange. It's a mixture of action and fantasy, which is very different from a lot of other Marvel stuff that's very grounded or more in the kind of sci-fi comic book area. This is much more fantastical. We have you have the Ten Rings and other kind of fantastical beings. You have people that have been alive for thousands of years. So it's just kind of a different kind of Marvel film.
Mm-hmm. It really is. So I guess let's jump into, I do want to talk about our actors and actresses, right? Simu Liu, is that how you say it?
Yep.
He is our lead. I have not seen him in literally anything. It's actually been a pleasure to find out more about him since we saw the film. He's very active on social media. He was the most recently, I think he was one of the main characters in the television show Kim's Convenience, which ultimately didn't last. And I've really been enjoying, he's been posting stock photos that he appeared in. Have you seen those, Andy?
No,
it's great.
Funny.
Yeah. So apparently at some point in his early career, he did a stock photo shoot for $100. And since then you can find all the stock photos online, and they've been on like textbooks and stuff. And he's posting them on Instagram. Like, awesome. Really glad to see these are coming back. Like now that I'm in a film that's actually going somewhere, but he's really tremendous. He's a ton of fun in this movie. I mean, obviously he's in shape for the role. He can hang on the action just fine, which is a challenge. Lots of really good action in this movie. But he's funny and he's charismatic and he's interesting. And for otherwise being a total newcomer, he's really good. Awkwafina's great as like a side character. She's a ton of fun. She plays Kate, kind of his good friend, and also valets with him. And she's really good. Michelle Yeoh and Tony Leung? I'm not even sure how to pronounce it.
Leung.
Excellent. Really good, dude. Both really solid.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that Tony Leung is kind of stealing the show. He's kind of he's out acting everyone on camera. He's kind of you may have seen him more recently in the Ip Man Kung Fu series. He's been in. I mean, he's also a staple of Hong Kong cinema as well. You've probably seen him in. He was in a couple of Wong Kar-wai films, Lust, Caution, and I can't think of the other one, Chungking Express. He's been in a lot of Hong Kong hits that you might know over here. And Michelle Yeoh, of course, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and a ton of action films between now and then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's super good. Tony Leung plays Shang's father. That's kind of his role, and he is the originator, at least in this film, of the Ten Rings. Shang-Chi would be inheriting them from his father, but his father he has kind of a different intention for how the Ten Rings should work and what they should do and how they should be used. And Shang-Chi, meanwhile, isn't even sure he wants anything to do with them at the beginning of the film, because he knows that they're this thing his dad has, and he just, he wants to go valet cars. He doesn't want to fight. He just wants to stay far away from stuff. But that offers a lot of really good opportunities for good settings for really good kung fu and good action. And I do want to talk about that. Andy, what do you think of the action scenes in this movie?
The action stuff is top notch. You have all these really complicated fight scenes with
really very fast action.
Yeah,
Lots of fast punches and kicks.
It's a little too fast sometimes. It's a little hard to keep up with sometimes. But it also reminds me of a lot of Jackie Chan films where he would do the fights, but he would also do lots of stunts. Like he's like jumping over walls and under this, and kind of in and out of really small spaces, like car windows, that sort of thing. So like the fight on the bus has a lot of that, where he's like swinging around the poles and like the luggage rack, very nimbly, and like that's very much a throwback, I think, to Jackie Chan style action films.
Yeah, the filmmakers cited Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Kung Fu Hustle, The Matrix, the Ip Man films, and Jackie Chan movies as influence for like the Kung Fu here. And I should stop saying Kung Fu. I don't know if it's properly Kung Fu, but the fight scenes. And they're super good. Also, a few of them feature like the classic Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like wires, right? Where our characters kind of float elegantly through the air. Dude, and that stuff's so cool. And I hope stays in universe. I would love to see a mashup film where another character directly asks Shang-Chi, like, dude, how are you floating around like that?
Yeah.
Like, cause it looks so rad. And I haven't seen that, I don't think, in a Marvel film, not in that style. I'm sure they've done wires before, but like I haven't seen them lean into like, hey, we're gonna try to pay homage to like these older films, this older Eastern style of filmmaking. Like, it's really neat. It's really cool. And additionally, like, there's a ton of Chinese mythology that's baked in here too. I mean, lots of like really cool settings. They go to a number of different places in the mountains. There's a bamboo forest at one point. There's waterfalls. There's cool mythical creatures. Like, I was really pleased by like the visual distinctions that they managed to take in this film. It's not just like your normal, oh yeah, a guy lives in New York and is having a tough time, has to go fight the world kind of stories. Like, it really goes to some unique places.
Yeah, it's very authentic to Chinese culture and Chinese mythology. A lot of this film is actually in Chinese. Like, you're going to have to read quite a bit of subtitles, especially towards the beginning. That, you know, and all these actors speak English. They could easily do it in English, but it's, you know, it's an homage of like just respecting the culture and the language is a big part of that. So a lot of this movie is in Chinese as well. But yeah, it's a lot of other iconography goes along with it, is that you'll see in the movie.
Yeah. I was really interested to kind of see how this tied into the comics and like the inspiration. You were quick to point out that the 10 rings in the comics are rings for fingers. They're not like these like gauntlet kind of things that you see in the film, right?
Yeah, it's I read that somewhere that they're originally they're rings that go on your fingers, but that's a little bit too similar to kind of the Infinity Gauntlet, and so they changed it to these like armbands, which look pretty cool too.
Man, yeah, I'm sure I'd have to read the comics, I guess, to learn more about like the individual rings. I'm sure they're cool, but like the idea of these kind of like gauntlet, almost like training rings, like you'd see for fighting, like these weighty kind of things, is so cinematic. They look so cool. And I love not only when they're just like on somebody's arms, but like the actual look of the rings in action. They like crackle and spark with this like electric power, and they just like whip around, destroy. Like, they're so cool looking. And I love the difference between his father in the film, who when he possesses the rings, they kind of have this like blue energy to them. And then when Shang-Chi gets them, as you may have seen in the trailer or the poster, they're kind of like a gold red. Love the visual distinction, very strong. And that extends to the rest of the color palettes of the film, right? Shang-Chi's colors are often like a red, gold, maybe like a white, very traditional kind of Chinese colors. Meanwhile, his father are going to be wearing black and blue through most of the film. Simple stuff like that makes for really unique storytelling. Like, and I love the presentation of it. It just feels more thought out than, you know, a handful of other origin films. The one I immediately jumped to, I think, is Captain Marvel to hold this against and say like, well, that, you know, look at like Captain Marvel. It just felt a lot of paint by numbers. It's unique, but ultimately like it just kind of checks the same boxes a lot of the other origin films have. This one feels really like its own beast, and much more of a standalone film. You could comfortably watch this by itself, having seen no other Marvel film, and you would get it. Like, I don't think there's anywhere that would be particularly confusing to you.
Yeah, one criticism of Marvel is that, you know, there's 23 films now.
This is the 25th film in the MCU.
Yeah, so it's
Good
like,
God.
where do you even start? But Phase 4 is a good starting point if you've missed the last 11-12 years of cinema, and Shang-Chi is a great starting point as well. You have a new character, newly introduced, and he's just not a new character. He's new to the MCU as in general, and there are some small MCU tie-ins that will set up some future films, some future conflicts. I think is done really well. So this is a really good starting point if you've happened to miss the previous 24 films.
I'm trying to think of anything else worth covering here. I feel like this review is a lot faster than I meant it to be, but I think it's a movie worth watching. So far, it's all praise. Any other thoughts for recommendations?
Well, like we said before, it's an origin story, but it's done better than most. A lot of times you feel like you got to get the origin story out of the way just so people are familiar with the character. You know, I think of Captain America, the First Avenger, or the first Thor film. Those are kind of throwaways. They're just like, okay, just so people know who this is, and then you can move on to the real film. But we get a really solid first entry of this character. Lots of action, pretty good laughs. Awkwafina, she's the comedic relief. So it's much stronger than most origin films are, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed this movie more than I thought I was, and I don't mean to say I was walking in thinking I'm not going to enjoy it, but it's the 25th Marvel movie, right? We've seen plenty of origin stories. I figured, it'll be pretty good. It'll have some fun action. It'll be all right. But no, I like the comedy. It felt smart. I like the action. Felt fire, man. The action in this movie is great, and I enjoyed overall like what's going on. So with that being said, Andy, would you recommend Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of action. Even if you're not into the superhero thing, I think this one's more, like I said, it's more grounded in some ways, and it's also more fantastical. Like it's more in the fantasy side, less in the kind of Captain America or Iron Man vein. It's a lot of fun. It's funny, good action, great stars. If you're familiar with Hong Kong cinema at all, you'll recognize a lot of faces. There's someone that's in Kung Fu Hustle is in this movie as well. And I love.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Right. I think I saw that on IMDb trivia. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's actually someone pointed out that there's a Kung Fu Hustle poster in his room.
Yeah.
Or an Aquafina in someone's room. So then that's one of my favorite films of all time. So it's if you're familiar with any of those films, you'll definitely see some familiar faces. So highly recommend.
Love Kung Fu Hustle. I'd recommend it as well. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I unlike Annette, I feel like I can comfortably say pretty much anybody can go see Shang-Chi and you're gonna have a good time. Like good for the kids, good for the parents, good for the whole family. Go check out Shang-Chi. It's a lot of fun. I'm very, very pleased. I can say it's not lukewarm. It's exciting. Like it's good stuff. Go check it out. And with that, we should wrap up the show. Bit of a long one this week, but I enjoyed having Min on. I hope she can come back.
Yeah, we'll definitely have her back next time we do some good horror.
Come October, we should get her on for maybe like a full like Halloween.
Recap.
We should do a couple like a double feature or watch something rad. Yeah. If you enjoyed the show, well, hold on. Andy, what are we watching next week?
We got a few things coming out. We are definitely going to be watching Malignant, which is the new horror film.
Speaking of horror, yeah.
Which directed by James Wan. That's going to be out in theaters and on HBO Max. That comes out this Friday. There's a few other things coming out that we haven't quite decided on. We'll decide on that later in the week. But that's the big one that we're watching. And that I've seen some good trailers from that looks kind of scary. So I think that'll be a good time.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, there's a couple of things coming out. We're not really sure what we're going to watch yet, but we will let you know. It's going to be announced. All right. Yeah, you guys don't worry about it. You go see Malignant with us, and we'll let you know what it is next week. Better yet, if you have something you think we should watch, write into the show. All right, check us out. offscriptreview@gmail.com. You can write in. You can tell us what you think. You can comment. You can recommend something we should watch, or maybe weigh in on things we have seen before. We're not actually on break next week. Disregard this banner. Just going to hide that if you're watching on Facebook. Not actually on break. We will be here. Yes. So you can check us out at offscriptfilmreview.com, our website. You can see our Facebook live streams where we live stream the show just about every Tuesday when we record at about 5 o'clock CST. We upload our archives to YouTube as well. You can find us over there at Offscript Film Review. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. But the best thing you can do if you want to get involved with the show, maybe let us know what you think, is just subscribe. Subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Google, Spotify, wherever you're at. And you can get new episodes of Offscript delivered straight to you every single Tuesday when we do them. With that being said, thanks for listening. From all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.